Welcome to the Relix Live Music Conference. I'm Jonathan Healey. I work at Dayglo Ventures, and I run marketing and video, and this is our panel on social media. I'm going to quickly introduce everybody. I guess I'll just go left to right. I'm going to tell you how I know everyone. So this is Erica. Erica started at Brooklyn Bowl as an intern. She's now the marketing director at Brooklyn Bowl. This is Dino. Dino works at Falcon. 4 years ago, I needed a piece of software that would do social media publishing across all the venues, and Dino emerged with the piece of software that we use every single day, so thank you for that. Gogi and I have a long history. A friend of mine, Dave Bell, introduced us years ago when I was at Gathering of the Vibes, and we've worked with Gogi's company to market that festival. We've worked with you at Lock-In. Thank you very much for that. Christina and I just met for this panel, and you're at Live Nation. Do you want to say a word?
Sure. Like you said, I'm Christina. I'm in the New York office of Live Nation, and I'm a digital manager for our New York Metro shows.
Thank you. And this is Myles. We also just met for the panel. Myles, do you want to say a word?
Hi, I'm Myles Grosovsky. I work at Q Prime Management in digital marketing and strategy, and I'm happy to be here.
Cool. And last but not least, Ali also came to us with a great piece of software that we use at Brooklyn Bowl Las Vegas for our digital ads, which has been very helpful, so thank you for that. All right, let's get to it. If you guys want to adjust your mics, feel free. That's a little... Okay, so there was something in the news a couple weeks ago. I don't know if anyone saw it, but it was an ad week. It was in TechCrunch. Instagram was toying with the idea of hiding like counts to people in the news feed. So the original poster would be able to see the likes, see the metrics, but casual everyday users would not see likes anymore. So I wanted to talk about that really quick, and I'm going to turn it to Gogi. What do you think about that? If there's the social currency that's somewhat inherent to likes goes away, what would happen?
Yeah, I find this move fascinating. Not to tip my own politics too far, but I don't think Trump is president if he doesn't have
Good point.
likes and the social echo chamber that happened. I think that what I do see this having an effect on is that the quality of what you post as a brand is going to have to go up. And I don't think you'll be able to rely on the fact that it's popular books, it's popular, and it will be popular books, it is popular. I think if everyone has to, independently in their family rooms evaluate a post, I don't think they're going to evaluate it the same way they do when they have that, 1 million people like it already, or 10,000 people, or 6 people they know plus 300 people. Like, I think it's just going to change the way social media is. And generally, I think it's for the better. I'm sure there's influencer networks that are very worried. But from someone that thinks about advertising from, the 5-10 year period, will these platforms exist? Will people trust the ecosystem? I think it shouldn't be a small test in Canada. It should be a much bigger test internationally.
Cool. So Erica, if the likes go away, what do you think about the content? What does the content need to be?
I mean, I think that it's all about having really good content and a strong message, and that's something that we do at Dayglo with whether it's the Bulls, Lock-In, or the Cap. We always like to make sure that our message is really relatable and personable. So as long as the content's strong and the message is even better, then I think that the engagement and the likes don't necessarily need to be there.
So, Gogi, you mentioned influencers, and I'm going to turn it to Dino. So think about this for a second. If you have influencers who are completely dependent upon that number, that metric, so what do you think is going to happen to influencers, Dino?
They're starting to form support groups, most likely. All jokes aside, and no shade intended to anybody who is in a support group, but I think... Okay, I didn't expect the laughter there, but okay. Okay, I actually think that the one thing the three of us, at least who just spoke, agree on is that brands and social marketers are prioritizing content quality over content quantity, which doesn't seem like a revolutionary concept, but there's a lot of brands out there that beg to differ, so to speak. And there have been recent examples, one for which I prepared to share with you here and that you all know, I'll get there in a sec, and another one that came to me at the most unlikely time and through the most unlikely source. So just have to take a step forward, but who here has watched either of the two Fire Festival documentaries with that whole shit show?
There's a lot of hands
There's a
up
lot
there.
of, ultimately, like my favorite quote from the Netflix documentary is how the 360-degree marketing campaign was given like huge exposure through influencers and basically died through just a picture of a moldy cheese sandwich. And then the second example, I sometimes have these moments when I just go to CNN or BBC or Al Jazeera, sometimes even Fox, to just counterbalance what's happening. And I saw an article that was titled, "YouTube Influencer Loses 1 Million Likes," or followers, whatever. And here I'm thinking, dear Lord, CNN, seriously? Like, can I apply for that job? Because there's, civil wars and God knows what, and you're writing about an influencer who lost 1 million followers. And I don't know if everybody's in the know, but the James Charles Toddy Westbrook, who I didn't even know existed before this, but ultimately there was an influencer collaboration mishap where the kid ultimately promoted a competitor brand to, that was competing with his mentor, basically. The point I'm trying to make is I think it's undeniable that influencer marketing can be successful and has proven to be successful. I think marketers will be spending a lot more hours doing homework to make sure that the product and also the person is the right fit, because perhaps we don't have to go for the Jenners and Kardashian level. Maybe we should take an A-lister, but an A-lister within our industry that genuinely cares about the product and not necessarily just about that number. And by number, I mean the dollar amount they're going to get and the likes they're going to get. So I'm actually, to go back to the first question, loving that they're going to take away the likes, because I think that will show true and genuine interest and engagement that's not blinded by the hype of celebrity.
Yep, and it just goes back to relevance, right? Because,
Yep.
And we go to a lot of these conferences, and authenticity, relevance, the message, we hear that a lot, and it rings true. And so if that were, how do you think, Myles, how do you think Instagram got here to conduct this test?
Well, I think it's a result of losing authenticity in a lot of the numbers that are displayed. So I think if some of the engagement numbers are hidden, those spending budgets on influencer marketing may start paying more attention to more concrete and long-lasting results. For example, they may be looking at conversions of people to brand loyalty as opposed to kind of more vapid number of likes and or reach. So it may actually place more importance on influencer marketing in the long run, but in the short term, it may change what people are spending those budgets on and for.
Let's go back to the Fire Festival. Can we really see a show of hands of people who've seen one of the documentaries? So it's the entire room, right? Okay. So we got a taste of sort of the dark and phony side of influencer marketing, which a lot of us use in various areas. Christina, do you think influencer marketing still has merit?
I think so. And just a note about the hiding the engagement. Just because it's hidden doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
So they're going to get to a place where they're just screenshotting their insights page on the back end and sending that to an agency or to, a big, like a L'Oreal or whoever is paying for that. It might, like you said, might clean it up a bit so that it's worth more, but I don't think it'll be gone. And in at least in my role, I do work a lot with influencers, micro-influencers, so I'm not paying a Jenner $150,000 to do something. But the way we find them is that we look at people who come to our venues and who come to our shows and are posting about it and what their social network looks like, and we reach out to them. So on that level, I do think it does have value, especially in our communities.
Well, you mentioned L'Oreal, right? And we're at a music conference. Where do you think in the music industry influencer marketing is at right now?
Well, as you know, a lot of sponsors, there are a lot of sponsors involved with big tours, And it's not always up to us or the artist or the management to reach out to a group of influencers who are now represented by a digital agency, but it could be up to that tour sponsor, whether it's Coke or Pepsi or Bud Light or whatever it may be. There are hands everywhere, and it's not necessarily up to us, but sometimes it does come down to us. So,
Ali, you spend a lot of time in the relationship that we have doing what I call show marketing. So, give you an example, a Capitol Theater, you got 100 shows a year, and you've got a finite budget for all of those shows, and you're spending little increments of money to market those shows. For someone like me in that situation, how do you see influencer marketing?
Yeah, so not to be contrarian here, but influencer marketing I think is great when you have a lot of time and it's a larger budget with like a destination style music festival. When it comes to venue marketing, I just think of the makeup of how teams are presented, and it's usually one, maybe two people managing a couple of hundred shows per year, and the budget that you're using for each of those marketing shows is probably like anywhere between $150 to $500 across 3 or 4 months. I just don't see a lot of budget being worth going to an influencer when there are more transparent and quicker ways you can sell more tickets through.
So, Erica, that's your situation.
Pretty much, yeah.
So how do you do it? How do you use influencers?
I mean, I think for Brooklyn Bowl, we use influencers in a different way. We look for user-generated content. We look for people having a good time at the venue, taking photos of food, and we kind of like to share those moments, more of like a brand ambassador kind of thing versus the influencer. We do try to get influencers and food bloggers for our food aspect of the room. However, it just doesn't seem like the best thing for our brand to get like, a big influencer in Brooklyn. It just doesn't seem, to me, rock and roll enough for like who we are. I think sharing moments and memories from people who are here and enjoying themselves is more valuable.
And maybe a quick follow-up question to you, Erica. Do you see like traction when you, let's say, take a potential ambassador's Insta story and repurpose it somehow in your Insta story? Do you see traction in the sense that all of a sudden that person's circle of friends is engaging, coming to you as a potential venue they'd want to attend down the road?
I think sometimes. I think it more so happens when we do the food influencers. Like, I think one time we had somebody take photos for our brunch, and then that weekend we sold like so many pancakes with the fried chicken on it, which is called our Jim Morrison, and it was just like crazy. But I mean, I think in terms of sharing content other than that, I think people will love the shout out, but it doesn't necessarily always translate to like get their entire friend group involved. However, I'd love to see that happen, so if anyone has any intel.
So the takeaway is foodies are everywhere.
Yeah, foodies are everywhere for sure, and we like them to come here and take photos of fried chicken.
Yeah, please take as many photos as possible this week. Christina, you and I were talking before too. There's like another type of influencer, I think too. It's not necessarily, the cliche sort of social media influencer. We were talking about how you were listening to. So you work at Live Nation, and you work at an entity, and then there's venues that work with you. So you are having conversations with people at the venues who themselves become influencers. Can you tell the group a little bit more about that and how you work with them?
yeah, sure. So we have a few owned and operated venues in the area, and we talk to people who work at the venue a lot, from the GMs to security to production, to also get a gauge of what's going on at these shows if you can't go to 5 shows a night. And you get a good sense of the makeup of the crowd, of what their attitudes are, of what their behavior is. And then we use social listening to find out who these people are, and whether they're going to come to the show, who they're going to bring. And that's how we identify at the micro influencer level who we want to approach to promote a show. But it is a lot of working with people on the ground level who may not understand social media, but they have the information and the experience to give you what you need.
Let's switch gears here. So we're talking about influencers. There's something that I think a lot of us, if not everybody in this room, uses, and it's data. So we always have to leverage data, and there's all types of data. You have your social media metrics, you have your ticket buyers, you have your owned, earned, and organic audiences. There's so much out there. So I want to talk to each of you about creative ways that you leverage this data. So Myles, I want to start with you. At Q Prime, what are you guys doing creatively to make the most out of your data?
Well, one of the challenges we face is that there's always too much data and not enough time to truly understand the data. So one of the initiatives that we take is really trying to simultaneously expand the audience pool that we have and understand, but really pay attention to our core audience. And once you start understanding the core audience and building the relationships with those in the core audience, it actually goes back to the previous point where you have a group of people who kind of serve as your own influencers and are able to do your own influencer marketing, and they feel a part of what you're trying to achieve. As far as the data, we are experimenting more with measuring and understanding and capturing excess demand so that it's actionable in the future. What that means in an example of touring is maybe those who tried to get pre-sale tickets, who weren't able to get pre-sale tickets, who we are then able to communicate with once a general on-sale happens, to be able to already provide them with something that they've previously expressed intent for.
Right, so that's great because then you have a scaling system that measures their intent. So this person may be this far into the purchase funnel or not. Gogi, I have been inside the Gupta Media dashboard for years, looking at the data. What are you telling your clients right now?
Yeah, I think, just sort of in a prep for this panel and listening to everyone speak, I feel like I'm slowly becoming a curmudgeon when it comes to data. 3 years ago, I would have said everything probably that Ali would say. It's, hit your core audiences, drive that. Whereas we've worked with more brands outside of record labels, where I've seen the biggest need is how you sort of harmonize all of your media channels, right? There's an acronym I like. It's PASO, paid, earned, social, owned. And so imagine that you put a festival on sale, right? And you send out an email, and you send out a text, and you post about it on your socials, and you flip your website, and your paid media launches, and somebody buys a ticket. Like, why did you spend that money, right? And so what we've had to start telling our clients is, like, that data is not, like, of course it's going to work, but you can be smarter about it and say, okay, send your socials at 10. Socials go do what they're able to do. Send your email at 10:30. Email goes and does what it's going to do. Do your press release at 11. Press does what it's going to be able to do. Send your text at 11:30. Mm-hmm. Let that do what it's going to do. And all of that time, keep your paid off, right? And wait 2 hours, right? And let everything that you don't have to pay for do the hard work. And then turn paid on, right? But when you turn paid on, don't hit the people that have been on the website that day or that morning. Don't hit the people that are on your email list, right? So if you can picture your target audience and a big hole in the middle, that's the data that says, I know about these people in the middle. We call it the donut strategy, right? So we take the people that we know and we actually suppress them. We say, don't hit them with paid media. So now instead of, if we have 5 million people in our target audience and we know 1 million, everything else gets to go after the easy stuff that we know is going to convert already. And now we're putting our paid dollars against the hard things. And what we've actually seen with our clients is they say, my CPA is higher, my click-through rate is worse, my conversion rate is worse, but I don't think I would have gotten that sale otherwise. I saw my hour-by-hour sale going like this, and then you turned on paid media, and it went back up, right? And so there's another term I like. It's called front running,
Yep.
right? So somebody, imagine this tickets go on sale at 10, and at 9 o'clock, you start advertising to everybody, your email list, your social fans, and for 9 to 10, they all see your ads, and at 10 o'clock, it goes on sale, and you say, everybody bought those tickets within an hour of seeing our ads, and that's technically true, but it's not good business, right? So how we use data has gotten much more sophisticated. And I think it's actually, I don't think I could have made that argument 5 years ago because I don't think our clients were sophisticated or senior enough in an organization to be able to say, like, the numbers are going to be worse, but it's way better for our business. And now those people have sort of risen up the ranks, and they get it, right? They've been burned by all the different games, and they're like, I want to make the most revenue that day.
So we're moving a little away from data. We're talking about campaign strategy. I want
Yeah.
to stick with this for a second. So let me summarize it. You tell me if I'm right. I'm going to summarize it really quick. Are you suggesting that hit your owned audience organically because you're going to get them the message anyway, whether it's through outbound email or Facebook or whatever, and then don't spend on that? And then are you suggesting in either the donut or the peso strategy to spend on prospecting?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying that, like, you have to give everything a minute to be successful. And that idea of everything goes out at 10 o'clock, and that's how most of us probably think, at 10 o'clock, fire the email, fire the text,
Yep.
post it on socials, let's get the press release out. Everything goes. And then you don't know what works. And, you know, I guess I've also become more and more confident in digital, that I, like, the ego and the brashness says, like, you guys all go do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
When shit hits the fan, call me. Because we will come up and, like, we'll put good strategy to work. We'll pick up the stuff that nobody else can pick up. And our ability to deliver that, our ability to measure that, that's the thing that's taken our business, you know, that's been the next step in my business growth.
So let's stick with this, and I want to turn it over to Ali because you guys are in a very similar business. How do you respond to that?
I think there's merit in what Gogi's saying. I think in the context of venue marketing, though, what I see across hundreds of venues across the country is that oftentimes the best data sources don't get used at all. So the things that he's referencing, like web traffic and the mailing list, I encounter venues on a daily basis that don't know that you could upload these things to Facebook and actually target them. So a lot of these individuals that venues assume will automatically buy tickets to shows don't end up even learning that the event exists. Similarly, there's a lot of audiences that your marketing teams can create for free that don't get utilized. Things like hitting individuals who have visited a Facebook or Instagram page in the past 365 days of an RSU booked never make it in the marketing campaign. Individuals that viewed a Facebook event page but didn't buy a ticket to your event, those are all fans that you can market that don't make it into your marketing campaigns. So I'm definitely supportive of a kind of strategy where, you know, we want to go out and try to reach new individuals, but the fact of the matter is when you advertise to individuals in your owned media list, they're actually more likely to convert. Salesforce put out a case study a while back showing that when you hit someone in more than one marketing channel, meaning email plus Facebook ads, they're about 30% more likely to convert than if you're just hitting them within a single channel. So I found that dual level of impact at the same time and hitting that channel is going to work out. Once again, though, it all depends, right? So if you're a high frequency venue and you've only got $150 to $500 on the show, I think you should be hitting those own media channels because chances are if you're a venue operating within a single market, the people that are going to your shows have likely already visited your venue page or have gone to a Facebook page or have checked out that artist page. If you are prospecting and looking out for new fans for a music festival that's in year 10 or year 12, it makes a hell of a lot more sense to utilize the strategy that Gogi's recommending where you want to go ahead and find new individuals and to hell with the CPA. If you've got 100,000 people buying tickets to your event, that data is going to get very messy. When you have, you know, anywhere between 500 to 1,500 people buying a ticket for your event, I think it's more responsible for that smaller budget that you have to go after the own media.
Yeah, I was going to turn it right to you, Christina. Go right ahead.
I was going to say it's also important to evaluate what you can realistically do. What are your capabilities off that checklist of things you need to do? What can you do the week of on sale? What can you do for maintenance? What should you do for closing? And also take into consideration the artist and that genre, and you know what they're doing on their side to market that tour or that show. There's a lot of what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I think you're the king of like experimenting and analyzing that. But there's also some like bare minimum things you need to do to make sure you cover your loyal fan base, the core fans of the band or the artist, and then see what extra you can do. On my end, a lot of our artists are already doing a lot. They're, you know, world class, have been doing this for a long time, and there are these 5 things that they always do that they know how to do, and it's up to us to come up with another 5 things that they don't know how to do, don't have time to do, and are looking for us to take it off their plate too.
Dino, what's Falcon doing? You know, not necessarily in the ad space so much, but in terms of social media, publishing, listening, how are you guys leveraging your data?
I first wanted to comment, if I may.
Go, please.
I think for people who don't necessarily have a lot of budget, we've seen success stories when it comes to organic impressions and engagement with simple video that hit, I guess, and if she's watching, she's going to kill me for saying this, but that emotional KPI, I always say the human side of things work, and honestly, that laughter right there could have easily been her from Copenhagen right now, because she always makes fun of me for saying that the human side of things works occasionally. From a brand awareness standpoint, I'm aware that it's not going to get the hard conversions to download an asset or buy a ticket. That's a whole different story, but just wanted to piggyback off where you started. I do see video work quite well for us to get the word out, let's say for a new festival or a new conference. But what we're suggesting our customers is to go down the route of social listening. I believe you mentioned it earlier, that you guys do it as well. Just honestly, because I do feel brands in today's day and age have a good handle of conversations happening on their owned channels. Would you agree as a brand?
Yeah, yes.
But I think there's a lot of niche conversations and blogs that none of us even know exist out there that we could be tapping into to potentially raise awareness about the event that we're hosting that's maybe 50 miles away from the event they're engaging with, et cetera. So we actually look at the data through social listening and migrated right on over into another part of the tool called Audience to segment these potential conversations we could be tapping into to suggest to brand X, Y, and Z that this is a potential opportunity to chime in as the experts on whatever the topic is at hand.
Erica, you and I meet every Monday to go over data at Brooklyn Bowl. And we're looking at it in those meetings from ad campaign strategy. Do you want to share with everybody just a little bit on how we look at the data and that you can feel free to comment too on what everyone else is saying.
I mean, I think for us at the Bowl, what we try to do a lot is tap into our past buyers and our own audience. However, it doesn't necessarily always work. And I think, because we're a room that has a lot of different kinds of genres and we don't necessarily always have the same act here all the time, it's kind of really good for us to be reaching out to other, blogs or different partners that we can work with that may have, reach that we might not have for an artist, say like Tanarwin or Bombino, who are, Malian and African artists who don't necessarily play a room like this. So I think for us, it's kind of really tapping into our own audience, tapping into our past buyers, and then seeing who we can work with outside of the venue, whether it be a blog, whether it be Afropop Worldwide, or OK Africa, that can really help us, whether it's a banner trade or a write-up or a contest. And I think that that's something that we're always really trying to do, to just tap into every single audience and reach that we know we have access to just hit all those markets, so we're not just kind of looking at our own audience and looking at the people that typically come to the room. Yeah.
Cool. Let's switch gears. I'm going to play a game with everybody. Digital advertising. Just feel free to shout it out. What is that? I'll start. Digital advertising might be Facebook ads. Can someone else give me another example? Banner ads. Someone else? Constant contact. Another one? Newsletter. Another one? What was that? Search. Okay. So my immediate reaction is those have been standard for probably a lot of years. I think the scope of digital advertising is expanding. So as digital marketers, it is all that. It's Facebook ads, Instagram ads, search, newsletter. But now it's becoming OTT, it's becoming Netflix, digital mobile billboards. It's the breadth of what we have to cover has expanded quite a bit. With Gogi, with the scope being so much broader now, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I think this is, that actually hits exactly on my 2019 thesis, which is, I have theses, I'm sorry. I wear blazers to music events, right? Somebody was giving me a hard time. So, every year I think about, where this industry is going, how we can change it, and I think, what you've said, 20 years I've been doing this, and those are the things I've cared about.
Yep.
But when I think about, a 20-something, right, they wake up, and come along for this ride with me. They wake up, they look at their phone, hop in the shower, walk outside, throw their headphones on, get on a subway, go to work.
Spotify, right?
They're
listening to
Spotify,
on
they're
the
listening to
headphones, yeah.
podcasts. They walk, they get to Penn Station or Grand Central, they walk down the street, they get to their building, they turn on their laptop or their computer.
Yep.
They do that, they work all day, they're multi-screening, put their headphones back on, go back home. They probably don't have a cable subscription, right? Like, they probably have Netflix, they have Hulu, they have Amazon Prime. And so that really struck me. So they never, like, who owns a radio? Like a physical radio in their house? Just hands up, we can't see a thing up here. There's like 9 hands that own a radio. When I say, do you own a radio? People say, oh, I have an Alexa. And that makes me laugh, right? Like, that's not a radio, right? People don't have cable subscriptions, right? So what we call it, the thesis, which you guys find so funny, is called the big on, right? So how do I push a button, and when they wake up, I have phone ads on their phone. I reach them on podcasting. I use digital out of home to reach them when they're walking. I reach them on traditional digital media during the day. I get them on connected TV on their way home, and I have voice activated.
How much are you spending for all that? It's a lot.
It's a lot, but so last Friday we did a big buy for Mark Anthony, and it was a fascinating buy, right? So we bought, those Link NYC boards that you see on every corner in the city? Every artist comes to us and says, I want to own City X. I want to own New York. I want to own Miami, right? So the big on was all the digital stuff that we ripped off here. We bought every single Link NYC board from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock in New York.
How many is that?
It's 6,600 in all 5 boroughs. We bought over 1,000 in Manhattan. But every single one was a Mark Anthony ad, right? He took over New York rush hour on his release day. There's a boat that goes up and down South Beach with a 40-foot long LED screen. We bought that for the day. And then we got to podcasting, right? And Mark Anthony's sort of, the godfather of Latin music, right? You can't have a small Latin music blog talking about Mark Anthony. It seems the wrong way. We wanted to do Miami podcast. He's an international star. You can't just do one city. But the thing that got him super excited was soccer podcasts. And having Spanish language soccer podcast talk about his new album was like...
How'd you discover that market?
This is, when we think about, like, what are these people doing? When people hop in a car in Miami, what are they listening to? They're listening to Spotify. And if they're listening to, podcasting, it's soccer. It's like, so we found this audience, and they love this idea. So when we talk about the big on, it is, how do I own you from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep, and not really care about the fact it's a phone, a tablet, or a computer, right? My new definition of digital is screen or sound, internet connected, so I can deliver the ads, and it has measurement capabilities. If you check those 3 boxes, you are now digital advertising.
What are you doing at Live Nation?
Obviously, there are the big looks that every artist wants, like a Kiss taking over Times Square on an evening announcing the tour. There are, Drake billboards everywhere, stencils, posters, whatever. There are those big looks that those big artists want, and we try our best to give them what they want. And if we can't, we find alternatives. But if you can't afford to place a spot on an international or national podcast, the workaround is the artist willing to do press? Can they do an interview? Can they call in? Then they're going to talk about the whole tour for free. That podcast or that program gets a hot guest, and you get a freebie ad. And I don't know if you've looked into what podcast rates are these days. They're insane. And they have the data to back it up. Unfortunately, the top cities are just like New York, LA, Chicago, Miami. So again, you have to find a workaround for those big looks. Luckily at Live Nation, we have the ability to do a lot of big looks, but on the smaller shows, we have to find a way to give that artist the attention they deserve. And that's, again, finding the workaround to a big look that's not as expensive, or maybe holding off that expense for another time that's more important. You're not going to put up billboards when it's 9 degrees out. You want them outside and looking at it. Same with the boats. You have to think about when you're going to make that spend. Can you afford it? Is it worth it? Is it more important for the artist to do it, even though you're not necessarily backing that idea? So it's a lot of push and pull with artist teams, with managements, with agents to figure out how to give that show or that artist or that tour the attention it deserves, but also be realistic about the spend.
Myles, with the scope expanding, a lot of people just casually attribute digital marketing to, say, Facebook ads or Google AdWords. How's the scope expanding at Q Prime, and what are you guys looking at?
We're always experimenting with new avenues, and similar to Gogi's point, we try to think about where people are naturally in their own lives, and how we can reach those people, in an unforced manner, but B, in a way that feels natural to them, or more as a reminder as opposed to beating them over the head. So maybe they're on Amazon buying toothpaste and they see a mention of an artist and it reminds them of the artist, and they go check out the artist, or if there's shows or new music. Or maybe it's on other social platforms where they're spending their time. We also try to recognize, in addition to your standard avenues, places that aren't as crowded, and maybe feel a little bit natural if it's some sort of ad bumper that plays before or after a song that you can get organically that drives your call to action, whether that be on a Pandora or a similar service. So we're trying to experiment with different avenues, and the thing to remember is that different artists and different initiatives require different actions, depending on what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to build familiarity, if you're trying to reconnect an existing fan base with current activities, whether you're trying to develop in a new market, so.
We've got 10 minutes left, and then we're going to do a Q&A after. So I want to spend the last 10 minutes talking about best practices, measurement. So we'll keep it really simple. I just want to go around the horn. I'll start with you, Ali, and I'll ask it this way. What are you telling ToneDen users right now?
Well, I'd like to start off by saying Facebook's going to it's having a really rough day at Relix conference, and I can tell based off the panel it's likely not going to get better. With that being said, guys, I mean, I studied economics at UC Berkeley, and at the end of the day, things boil down to budget constraints and time constraints, and budgets at venues are very small, and the amount of time that your marketing team has is also incredibly limited. When we talk about reaching people or fans where they are, the fact of the matter is they're on Facebook. I guarantee you some of you in the audience are on the Facebook family of apps right now, whether it's Messenger, Instagram. There are about 2 billion daily active users on those family of apps, about 2 hours per day, and Facebook's created a very transparent tool that anyone on your marketing team can use, regardless of digital marketing experience, to sell 15 to 20% of the total inventory you have for your shows for anywhere between, I don't know, 150 to 500 bucks. And there aren't many alternative marketing platforms out there that can do the same. You can perform that kind of buy on a Snapchat, on a Google, but from a demand gen perspective, Facebook and that family of apps is really doing a lot for music venues. This is coming from someone that has watched 3,000 event organizers in the past year create about 24,000 campaigns and drive about $40 million of gross ticket sales. With that being said, some takeaways that you guys can use, and this isn't necessarily just for venue marketers, but I think it equally applies to agents in the room as well, is just better educating individual marketers on what they can be doing to make sure that they're moving as many tickets as possible without needing a massive marketing budget. Those are uploading your mailing list to Facebook, making sure a pixel's installed so that you can see sales data. For a lot of agents in the room, yes, you can actually ask a promoter or a marketing rep how many tickets were actually sold on a campaign. It's been great to see that level of transparency. And then also, just taking a deeper look into Facebook for those custom audiences. I know that it isn't always the sexiest suggestion, but from a practical standpoint, guys, it's how I see venues get from 0 to 10 in marketing in less than a couple hours worth of investment.
Thanks. Myles, what kind of key insight can you offer the conference?
Sorry.
What sort of key insight or best practice in your experience can you offer to everyone?
I guess to Ali's point, it don't overlook the things that maybe seem more elementary. Start with your basic checklist of items and make sure that those are covered. And then if you need to expand further onto that. I'll still stand by my point that it's very important to cultivate a core group of fans and audience member, because if you have an active core, you're not going to need to spend as much advertising money, because they're going to be your amplifiers that help get your message out. I'll also add that there's a very delicate balance between conversation and promotion, where people should not feel as though they're constantly being sold to, but that's sprinkled in amongst a conversation that they're already leaning into. And I guess the third point is don't be afraid to experiment. And not all experiments have to be very costly and expensive, but that is an important way to learn new things and to establish new best practices.
Test and measure. We say that all the time. Christina, what from a Live Nation perspective, what best practice or key insight would you offer everyone?
This is also going to sound very simple, but educate yourself on the terms, on what they mean, but also what they mean for you. Because someone else's value on a particular metric is not going to be the same for what you're doing. Scale it to your situation. Figure out what you don't know. And that's something I come across a lot, which is you don't know what you don't know. So whether that's marketing a new genre you've never been in, like a hot up-and-coming artist that you've never heard of, like K-pop is huge. They're selling out stadiums in the US, but in the elevator at work, there was a VP who was like, "What is BTS?" And I was like, okay. So figure out what you don't know, and get a grip on that. And also figure out what's appropriate for you and what you can actually do. Study up on the trends, obviously, stay on top of the daily changes. It feels like every hour there's a new thing going on, but sometimes that's not appropriate for you. Sometimes your team can't handle it at this time. So it's, stay up on what's going on, see what you can do, but also know what's a wasted effort, what's a waste of your time and money.
Gogi, what's Gupta Media's
I think
perspective?
it's funny that you say that. One of the most popular parts of the public-facing part of our website is our glossary. And it's just like when a new term comes up, we put a glossary entry in and people love it. Books, it's, we don't try to sell there. It's like a dictionary for today, right? And I didn't think it would be as popular as it is, and it's like by far the most used part of the website. So, what I would say is in 2003 when I started doing this, we'd work for the digital marketing manager. That's the person that would hire us. Mm-hmm. And now on our bigger clients, we are working for the CMO, the CEO, the principal. 100% of festival tickets are sold online. 65% of recorded music revenue is through streaming services. Probably 85% is digital revenue. And I feel like, we say you have to measure your business top down and bottom up. Top down, looking at revenue by day, paid, unpaid contributions, CAC, customer acquisition costs, sort of those sophisticated top line revenues. And then bottom up, looking at how your marketing channels are supporting that. And I think that if you're going to be a sophisticated businessman, forget sophisticated digital marketer, you have to understand how the media and the marketing fit into your top line. And I think for those of us that care about digital, we have to proudly say that digital is the biggest lever for any of the businesses. And that makes us, not second fiddle like we were in 2003, but the most important people in the room. And I think that's been really interesting.
And that goes back to what we were just talking about, how the scope has just increased immensely. It become I like how you said that. It's the biggest lever you can pull. Dino, what are you telling Falcon users?
It's interesting that you say the glossary is one of the most popular assets for us as well, in addition to the best times to post on social, which for the life of me, I don't know if it exists. But anyway, two things. I think because we're a big frightened family following Fire Woodstock 2019, will it, won't it? And then this Coachella influencer debacle. I think it's so crucial to underline what Myles, you said, to spend additional hours doing your homework and researching. I think a lot of the mistakes could have been avoided with just proper scoping and perhaps briefs that have been sent across departments to avoid what would happen 6 months later, or I don't know. And then the second thing is I like to suggest going live. I think it's a wonderful sales asset, going live on Facebook, for instance, or Instagram. Even if nobody shows up, that's step one. Even the likes of Amy Porterfield, who's super huge as a social marketing influencer within our industry, is started off with like 0 viewers, I guess. But when that live video is saved, it's a wonderful sales asset that you can embed wherever you're promoting ticket sales, for instance.
And if you want to know more about live streaming, check out my panel from last year's Relix Live Music Conference.
There you go. And selling relics. Check.
All right, Erica, final thoughts on best practices or key insights?
I think from the venue standpoint, I think it's working with the artist and teaching them best practices in terms of digital marketing. I can't tell you how many times I've had to teach people how to use Facebook and use Facebook ads. And we have how-to videos that you have made, and they have saved us so much time on teaching people how to accept an advertiser request. I think also is just really understanding your brand and how to come off and be personable. So it's not just a digital ad and selling a ticket. I think it's just the whole scope of everything and who you are as a brand, to just make sure that you're really in tone with that, and just also, just making sure that you're just hitting all of the right angles, that it's not just from the digital advertising standpoint. And then also just echoing what everyone else said, use what you have, use your resources, use your data, understand your audience, understand who you're reaching, and then hopefully the tickets will just sell for every single show.
Before we do the Q&A, anyone want to offer anything else? All right. Do we have a microphone for the Q&A? Here it comes. Ricky Blakesberg, everybody.
I thought we would disagree more, but this has been a big happy family, I guess.
Thank you all. That was really interesting. Very interesting to hear about it, because I come from kind of like a more grassroots way of thinking. Question though, one thing that hasn't been mentioned, but I'd love for you to comment on, is mobile messaging. It's becoming a very large trend within the marketing and technology space, which is what I am a part of. So would love to see if there's been any experiments and anything that you've learned.
Yeah, so I found that there, sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I found with Messenger, it's very complementary to email. So we're seeing open rates.
That also includes like phone number.
I can't speak too much to SMS, but I have seen it work out. I mean, I'm pretty sure Life is Beautiful sold out either last year or the year beforehand, like almost purely through SMS. You can validate that.
We're involved a little bit. Yeah.
With that being said, though, I'm noticing there are two approaches to Messenger. So one is having this incredibly elaborate like bot flow that's guiding fans through aspects of your venue or of your festival. But there's an alternative approach that I've seen very well that's more or less transactional, that revolves around reminding fans when a general on sale is going live. So in the case of many venues, you guys stagger your announcements and on sales. You might announce an event on Monday, and then the general on sale goes live on Friday. I found that fans are very receptive to receiving a Facebook message that Monday or Tuesday asking if they'd like a general reminder when an on sale goes live. And when you take that multi-channel approach and also remind them with an email plus a Facebook message, you tend to have stronger on sales. So that's my take on Messenger.
Can anyone comment on SMS?
Yeah. So here's a word for the spelling bee tonight. It's called re-intermediation. And re-intermediation is the re-entry of filters into communication, right? So if you think about what happened to email, Google put up the promotions tab, and like nobody ever goes in their promotions tab,
Spam.
right? Right. It's basically spammed by a different name. So it got re-intermediated, right? Email used to be, it was in your inbox, you'd see it between your mom and your buddy, and you'd open it just because. And now it's in a different folder, you never open it. Email open rates have gone down, clicks have gone down, email's dead. SMS has not been re-intermediated. So abuse the hell out of it. It's going to go away in 18 months, but like
You think everyone opens it too?
the open rates and the action rates are out of control.
So like 99%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Because
where
you know what? Your buddy and your mom are your previous and your next test. So when you get one, you go look and you're like, Life is Beautiful's on sale now, right? Like they did a great job doing it, and they were the tip of the spear. We were in the sixth inning. Technology is going to say like we don't need 60 brands texting us at all times. Right. If it comes from someone you don't know, put it in this folder. Mark it as red, and then it won't work. So
So you think it's going to be a finite period and it's going to end? Yeah.
Andrew Chen, who's the he was the head of growth at Uber, he has this term called the law of shitty click-through rates, which is over time, all marketing channels' click-through rates decline. It's kind of like how the first banner ad on the internet had like a 95% click-through rate, and now it's like 0.000001.
yeah.
Do we have another question? Some people back there, Ricky. Yep.
I just have a general question. When working with a smaller budget for shows, would you recommend using it, like if for a Facebook ad, using it on the on sale or more like 2 weeks before the show? I just like, timing wise, I've been experimenting with spending my budget,
So
Toward-
can I
yeah.
just jump in for a sec?
Yeah.
So you're saying you have a small budget,
Right, I don't
and you're
have-
trying to figure out the timing between the announce, the
timing.
on sale, and then the lead up?
Just, yeah, which one, like, what do you see better reaction?
Can you give us just a number, like how much you spending?
Let's say I have a $200 Facebook ad.
$200. Anyone want to field that? Oh, Erica.
I think it really depends on the artist and whether I think it's kind of talking to the artist manager and seeing like, when do you guys sell the most tickets? Is it on the on sale or is it the 2 weeks leading up to the show? And then that's when you decipher how you make your spend. I think you should still allocate some of the budget towards the on sale just because it's important to do so. But if the artist manager comes back and says, we do most of our sales a week of show and with walk-up sales, then definitely save the budget for that final kind of 2 weeks. That's my opinion, because that's something that we run into all the time too. But if it's a bigger artist, then definitely put it towards the on sale. I don't know if you want to piggyback on that.
Well, let someone else. Does someone else have a perspective on a $200 budget?
I think sorry. I think it, like you said, it does depend on the artist and the genre and like the selling pattern. Maybe a simple like $20 Instagram boost the day of announce gets the word out enough, and you feel like you've at least done something. But also, what's down the line for that artist? Are there singles? Are there music videos? Are there albums coming out? Like, can you allocate some of that for those periods when people are going to be talking about them, instead of just sweating the last 2 weeks before the show?
Anyone else want to field it?
It's definitely venue specific. What I would do if you ever have the time is just try to look at the general sales curve of your events in the past. By that I mean what the daily sales volume is in each portion of the event marketing lifecycle. If you don't have time to do that, my general rule of thumb is just imagine like a camel with two humps. Typically you see a lot of daily sales volume right when the on sale happens, and everyone's really pumped for the first 7 days, and then day 8 or 9 hits, sales go down, all of a sudden artist management starts freaking out, they shoulder tap the agent talks to the promoter talks to the marketing manager, and everyone feels a little bit unhappy. Time passes, all of a sudden we're 2 weeks out from the show, and then sales volume picks up, everyone's excited again, and things are fine. My advice would be with a fixed budget, spend when you see that fans are most likely to buy. With that being said, though, the best thing you could do is look at your previous sales data, I'd say, because that will give you a feel for how your market is. I've seen certain markets, mostly South Beach and Vegas, where you're dealing with like 60 to 70% of the show's inventory selling out in like the last 12 hours leading up to the event. I hope your market's not like that, but it definitely can vary.
Let's do another question. Where's Ricky?
How do you guys balance the value of an email versus the reliance upon various social networks in terms of communicating with core fan bases?
So, Josh, was email and what?
How do you balance the value of an email versus the value of communicating with your fans through social networks whose data you don't get that personal data from those networks?
I think people are more sensitive and protective of their inboxes, so you have to keep that in mind. That being said, you do see the highest conversions through email. I think a very simple practice that gets overlooked is making an initial announcement with then sub-points of interest that are reinforced. So after you make your initial announcement of whatever it be, a show, an album, a song, then the next newsletter that you do, that moves down, but it's continually reiterated. So you're able to bring up the same marketing message multiple times without beating people over the head, and maintaining a consistent story that avoids a one-and-done approach. I think you have more flexibility in marketing the same thing multiple times on socials with.
I would say email somebody when you have something new to say. It's not like on sale now, on sale now, on sale now. Like, obviously, I got this email, I know it's on sale now, but is there a pre-sale code? Is there a special offer? Is there a reason why you're sending me another email? And it better be a new reason. So
We talk about that a lot. We always try to bring value in all of our promotions. We're slowly running out of time. I'm trying to get a couple more questions. We'll take another one or two.
Hi, I'm curious how you guys would break down some of your advice and best practices along generational lines, say the, millennials and under, the middle of the road Gen X, and the old dude classic rock baby boomers. I mean, it seems like they all have different relationships with technology. The Big On seems to be tailored towards maybe a younger audience, but a lot of the classic rock old dude stuff, like what works, or is it as simple as they're just 5 years behind the millennials and whatever worked 5 years ago, just transfer forward? How do you break down your advice along generational lines?
So I can deal with some. 2 years ago, when I was selling to individual amphitheaters, all my pitches got turned down or 3 years ago, because there was this belief that their audience was on radio. Then the election happened, and it was a lot easier to sell venues on Facebook ads and Instagram in particular, or on Facebook in particular in this case. I just divide it into two. If you're dealing with an audience that's late 30s, early 40s, and above, you can easily find them on Facebook. For the younger demo, Instagram has worked incredibly well. I deal with a lot of clients in Las Vegas, especially casinos, and they are making a killing on Facebook for both hospitality and just general show ticket sales.
Anyone else want to field that one?
for a younger crowd, I like to add in Snapchat ads, not just filters on location, but actual ads. And I tend to find that I get more bang for my buck. I think the minimum spend is like $200, so you can test it out. You can only do DMA targeting. That's the smallest targeting you could do at the moment, but I think it's still worth it to test that out. They have a lot of audiences there.
Anyone else? This might be our last question. So
Yeah, I think the point you made about like classic rock, we're going to be working a Bruce Springsteen album, and it's, you know, how do you find 50-year-old guys, right? And what we're finding is like digital out of home at like if I don't remember what the new World Trade Center transportation hub is called, but you know, advertising around like Wall Street, right, or Canary Wharf in London with big ads is a great way to find sort of well-to-do financial classic rock types, right? Like you can find those people. People cluster by geo, by usage, and it's if you can figure out how they're going to cluster, you're going to be able to find an ad medium against them.
I just want to add on to that. I think also taking advantage of Facebook's audience insights, especially depending on whether you're looking at the millennial or the classic rock lover. I mean, we just had the Meat Puppets last week, and we saw that one of their audience insights was a radio station that we work with regularly, and we reached out to them and said, let's do a contest, because we saw that fans of the Meat Puppets also love this radio station. And I think it's just kind of like looking at seeing what relative interests you could reach out to or work with or add to your audience targeting. and also making sure you're doing the right age range in your ads targeting as well. But yeah.
I have a recent example. I was just traveling through Atlanta airport, and they have those like concourses, so a lot of people move through them. There was an ad like offline, it wasn't digitalized or anything, and it said 78% of millennials will notice this ad, and it was a local restaurant or something like that. I quickly scanned the people going down on the escalator, and besides myself and a couple of random people, most of which were around my age, were all looking upward. I don't know if they were looking at it. There wasn't enough time, but I think that actually spoke to that we're also receptive to not just the Snapchats or the Instagrams, but also to what's happening around us.
I think we're out of time. Thank you all for watching our panel. Thanks for my guests. Thank you guys very much.